Welcome everyone and thank you for joining me in this presentation. My name is Zeyuan Wang, second-year PhD student at University of Paris-Saclay. I'm fortunate to have Professor Chatli as my thesis supervisor and the co-author of this paper. So today I'm delighted to present our latest research on fault-tolerant control of multi-agent systems. I will start with the problem statement, then the proposed method in this paper. A simulation example will also be demonstrated as follows, and finally is the conclusion. So let's begin with looking at our specific problem in the context of multi-agent systems. Let's consider the leader-following problem with n follower agents and one leader. They are represented by the linear continuous time differential equation in equation 1. The leader here is actually a virtual signal without any control input, and this model is commonly used in the field of leader-following control of multi-agent systems. The objective here is to have the leader-following consensus, which is equivalent to have the difference of the state of the leader and the state of the follower convergent to 0. Let's also define some notations of the graph, such as the Laplacian matrix, leader degree matrix, and the matrix H equals the Laplacian plus the leader degree matrix. And these matrices are typically used in multi-agent graph representations, and we keep following these routines. Now, in normal working condition, there's no fault, and we then propose the nominal observer-based controller. The nominal observer is composed of this equation 3, where the xic hat is the observer state. We have the derivative of the observer state equals a times xic hat plus b times uic plus the observer gain LO times the difference of the observer output and the system's output. The nominal controller is uic, which is the controller gain big K times Zi, where Zi is the combination of the neighbor state and the state of agent I itself. So here Aij is not 0 if agent I and J are connected. The Di is not 0 if agent I is directly connected to the leader. The tilde xic is the event-generated state because here we use the mechanism of event-triggered communication. So the state xi or the observer state, the hat xi, is not directly used in Zi, but the event-generated state, the tilde xic, the tilde xij. The tilde xic or xij defined by a model-based estimation as the value of tilde xic at the event instant tki equals the observer state, the hat xic. And between two consecutive events, tki and tk plus 1i, the tilde xic will follow the exponential law, or we say the model-based estimation, as the derivative of tilde xic equals a times itself. And notice that here the tki is the case event of agent I. And to measure the difference of the event-generated state and observer state, we define the epsilon as the event error as a difference of tilde xic and hat xic. We will also apply the technique of the event-triggered control, and here is the event rule in equation 5. The k plus 1 event of agent I is defined as the instant t after the case event once the function gi is 0 or positive. And gi is defined as minus eta plus omega times the combination of the quadratic product of event arrow and another quadratic product of control input Zi. Here, the big U and big T are two matrices to be designed, and eta is the auxiliary variable with positive initial value, which follows the dynamic in equation 6. And basically, this DETM, dynamic event trigger mechanism, is an extension of the result in the famous paper of Gerard 2015. Note that we have in total 4 parameters to design: the observer gain LO, the controller gain big K, and the DETM gains big U and big T. They are a priori designed to have the asymptotic consensus. I will not present the detail of the design process, but basically they can be obtained by solving a set of matrix inequalities, and please see our paper for more details. So now let's assume that we have already well designed this controller and observer and we have obtained these parameters. Now let's look at the system under faulty condition. Here we use the superscript small f to present the state affected by the fault. Note that the difference between the fault system and the nominal system is that the input matrix B becomes BIF and the output matrix C becomes CIF. And this is because we consider the multiplicative actuator and sensor fault. So here BIF is equal to B times the actuator effective matrix big theta I, which is a diagonal matrix with each element representing the effectiveness of each actuator. The effectiveness is between 0 and 1, so if it is 1, it means there's no fault, and if it is 0, it means we completely lost this actuator. Because we have m actuators, so the matrix big theta I is m by m. The output matrix CIF follows the similar modeling of BIF with the effective matrix big phi I. Each diagonal element small phi I is between 0 and 1. So this is how we model the fault. And when we study the multiplicative fault, the first is the loss of effectiveness is usual and common in the fault scenario. It means the actuator or the sensor can only perform a part of function or a part of efficacy compared to the normal actuator or sensor, and they are more difficult to handle compared to the additive faults. Besides, when we have zero effectiveness, there is a problem of reallocation. And don't forget that we have also applied the event-triggered communication mechanism, so this is a big challenge in consensus control. And we now at this page to summarize our problematic and assumptions. So we arise two problems to be solved in this paper. The first is, how can we guarantee the leader-following consensus in the presence of multiplicative faults? And the second is, how does the event-triggered protocol be synthesized in the presence of multiplicative faults? And to address these problems, we are going to adopt three assumptions. The first is the matrix pair AB is stabilizable and AC is observable, and the faulty process ABIF and ACIF are still stabilizable and observable. The second assumption is that the leader is the root of the communication topology, and the topology is undirected and fixed. The final assumption is that the fault values small theta and small phi are available. This means that, for example, we already have a fault estimation or a fault diagnosis module to offer a good estimation of these fault values. And I'll present to you the method proposed in this paper of fault-tolerant cooperative control by using the virtual actuator and the virtual sensor approach. The VA and VS can actually compensate the fault effect without retuning the designed controller. And this method is considered as a generalized approach of the pseudo-inverse technique, but can handle more general fault, including complete loss of effectiveness. Let's look at more details of the architecture of VA and VS. In the left figure is a nominal control without FTCC. The plant outputs YIC to the controller and gets the input UIC from the controller. The controller takes the YIC as the output and together with the event-triggered mechanism DETM and generates the input UIC for the plant. And on the right-hand side is the fault-tolerant cooperative control. Notice that now we insert an additional green block between the faulty plant and the nominal controller. This green block is called the reconfiguration block, which includes the virtual actuator and the virtual sensor. Notice that the original channels of UIC and YIC are deprecated. Instead, they are moved to these channels between the nominal controller and the reconfiguration block. In fact, the system output is no longer YIC but YIF, and this signal is transferred to the virtual sensor which generates YAC to the nominal controller. Besides, the virtual actuator takes the nominal value UIC and transfers it to UIF to the faulty plant. So in this scenario, the nominal controller remains unchanged, and it was like it doesn't care what happened outside the controller because the input-output relation is not changed. On the contrary, the faulty plant is reconfigured by the virtual actuator and the virtual sensor, so it's also called reconfigured plant. Now let me introduce the virtual actuator. The idea is to reconstruct the input UIF from the nominal input UIC. And recall that the virtual actuator is actually a more general case of pseudo-inverse method. So if there's no complete loss of effectiveness, we want to simply make this relation BIF times UIF equals B times UIC. That is, the UIF equals the pseudo-inverse of BIF times B times UIC. And now consider the case of complete loss of effectiveness. We add a supplementary signal MIVA times Xi delta for compensation, and the Xi delta is the state of the virtual actuator. And this is a more general case of equation 8, and the big matrix MIVA is the gain to be designed. And if there's no complete loss of effectiveness, we can simply make MIVA equals 0, and then equation 9 becomes the pseudo-inverse method in equation 8. The virtual sensor is actually a dual form of virtual actuator. It converts the faulty output YF to the normal output YIC. So similarly, if there's no complete loss of effectiveness, we can simply apply the pseudo-inverse method as in equation 10, as the YAC equals C times the pseudo-inverse of CIF times YIC. Otherwise, we introduce a compensate signal YAVS as the state of the virtual sensor, which follows the dynamic in equation 11. And notice that here, the big LIVS is the gain of the virtual sensor to be designed. The next step is to construct the synthesized formulation of the whole system. And before doing so, let's define the error variable as the consensus error delta IF, the observer error EI, the sensor error SI, and the event error epsilon I. We also define the vectorized variable as the delta F, ES epsilon, and X delta. Let's also define these notations. The A bar, B bar, C bar are actually the canonical product of the identity matrix and the matrix itself. So we follow these rules and we define also the K bar, LO bar, T bar, and U bar. The following matrices are also defined as the block diagonal matrix of small matrices of each agents as the M bar VA and L bar VS. So here the red matrices means the gains to be designed later, and the cyan matrices means the pre-designed parameters under no fault condition. And finally, we obtain the closed-loop aerodynamic as in this equation. We now add the stage to apply the Lyapunov theorem by proposing the candidate function as in equation 19. We can verify that the V is positive as the Q and eta I are positive. And the objective is to find the sufficient conditions such that the derivative of V is always negative. I now present to you the final result in this main theorem. After studying the Lyapunov function, we obtain the result as follows. The system in the presence of actuator and sensor multiplicative faults can still maintain the leader following consensus if the following matrix inequalities hold. Here, the matrix MIVA is the gain of the virtual actuator and LIVS is the gain of the virtual sensor. The matrix big T and big U are gains of dynamic event trigger mechanism. The matrix Sij are block matrices defined in our paper because they are actually quite long. We have proved that if these matrix inequalities are satisfied, the gain of VA and VS exist and the leader following consensus can still hold. And actually, the above matrix inequalities are bilinear, so we do need global optimization solver. Also notice that the T bar and U bar as the gain of the event trigger mechanism are involved, which means the event trigger control may need to be updated according to the fault. Again, the nominal controller and the observer remain unchanged, which is the main advantage of this method. I also recommend you to have a read of this very similar paper which just came out after the submission of Safeprocess. So at that time we were not aware of this study, but still there are many insights in this paper, so I recommend it for more information. And as a summary, I present here the FTCC procedure as follows. So once there are faults detected, the values are estimated and given as big zeta I and phi I. Then we apply the main theorem to calculate the gain of virtual actuator and virtual sensor, as well as the gain of the DETM. Next, the agent I will insert the reconfiguration block between the plant and the nominal controller to activate the FTCC strategy. And finally, I present here a simulation example. The system matrices A, B, C are defined as follows, and the nominal controller and the observer gains are obtained as matrices K and AO. The communication topology is presented in this figure. The fault setting is described in this table. We consider simultaneous partial and complete loss of effectiveness on different agents. For example, between 5 and 10 seconds, the effectiveness of the second actuator of agent 2 becomes 0. And after 35 seconds, the effectiveness of the second actuator of agent 1 and agent 5 becomes 0. And after simulation, this figure presents the evolution of consensus error of different agents. And we can see that the consensus is well achieved. The dashed line actually means the occurrence of faults in corresponding agents. For example, we can see that at t equals 10 seconds, there is sensor fault in agent 1 and actuator fault at 35 seconds. And notice that the fault can propagate to the healthy agent. For instance, the perturbation of agent 2, 3, and 4 after 35 seconds is actually due to the actuator fault of agent 1 and agent 5. And then in this figure, we can see the inter-event time of each agent. It is quite evident that the inter-event time IET decreases each time a fault occurs, such as at t equals 5, 10, 20, and 35 seconds. And this is because the fault will bring more unprecise information when it is not fully tolerated. Therefore, the agent needs more communication to update and share the state. And finally, for conclusion, in this paper, we proposed a unified framework of fault-tolerant cooperative control for multi-agent systems under multiplicative actuator and sensor fault. We have developed a virtual actuator and virtual sensor-based approach which can handle the partial or complete loss of effectiveness. The dynamic event trigger communication protocol is also developed to reduce the usage of network resources. However, we also admit that there are some future works. For example, we have assumed that the fault values are well estimated, but if the estimation is not exact, how the estimation error can affect the control performance. And since we can only adjust the piecewise constant fault, so if there is a fast varying fault, can we adopt this strategy to handle this problem? And another practical concern includes disturbance and uncertainties, which should be considered in the future work. That concludes my presentation for today. Thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us, and we are always open for discussion.